We got another British girl.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. I just
You're listening to Inside Real Estate, where we go deep into the minds of real estate professionals. Here are your hosts, Paul and Sal.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Apostolakis here. Salvatore Kuzmano.
Good morning.
Brad.
What up?
Stop it.
What up?
Special guest in the studio today, Brandon Gentili from the Legacy Group, in Clarkston. How are you, sir?
Good.
Yeah?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Look good.
Thank you.
So, Brandon.
Got it ready for you guys, too.
Yeah, I see that. The product is great.
I know,
today,
right? The product. Thank you for saying product, by the way.
Product.
You don't say product, you don't know style
Don't
or
know.
hair or
Yeah,
anything.
You got great product, brother.
I love that.
So Brandon is a ex-hockey player. I think this is interesting because I think people that are competitive do well in the world. You played for the U.S. national team. You played for Michigan State. So obviously you played hockey at a high level, right? Mm-hmm. Probably got your ass kicked a few times. Probably kicked some ass a few times.
Yeah. A little more dishing out than taking.
You dished it out.
A little
bit more.
Yeah, a little bit more.
I wouldn't want to fight you, dude. Next thing you know, my shirt's over my head. I'm getting pummeled to the ground with one arm. Dude,
you know what's okay? So this is really funny. This is really funny. I was very physical as a defenseman. Very physical. Like you think of 90s hockey. Like you think of just you
want to
drag
smash
out
people.
Like brawls, things like that. That stuff happened, but I was a kid growing up then, obviously. But that's how I played, just very physical, like Scott Stevens style. Like you think of when we played in the '95 finals, like just crushing guys, you know, knocking guys up. That was me hitting people. But when I got older and we eventually started fighting, I got into my fair share of fights. But boy, did I suck at fighting.
You did?
Like the thing is, if you become a great fighter, you have to be able to take a punch. That's it.
I don't want to do that.
All of us can sit here and get in a fight and throw punches. Everyone can throw punches.
Yeah.
Who can take the punch is who wins the fight. That's the one thing I learned very quickly. I'd be big. Remember this one guy. He was native or something like that, or from one of the Canadian provinces or something like that. This kid was 5'6", 5'7". He would throw 100 punches. You could hit him 200 times, and he'd be laughing in your face. I saw him fight guys 6'5".
Really?
Oh yeah, and take him down. Everything. It's all about who can take that punch.
It's easy to get caught.
Yes.
Right?
That's
and you get caught and you can't handle it, you're done.
That's a good analogy for life, dude. Honestly, if you can't take a punch, you're probably not going to do well in much.
Yeah.
I mean, I get kicked in the nuts
if you can't take a couple L's, you're going to not have a great career.
Absolutely.
Right. You got to be able to take the L. So
we should do a weekly just
you got to roll with the punches, like they say, right? You got to take
That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, tell us a little bit about your background, man. Obviously, you're a real estate agent. You're a great real estate agent. You've got a great team out there in Clarkston. But tell me how you got into the business, how you've been doing, right? Just give me some history on yourself, man.
So you kind of mentioned
you got to talk into the mic, brother. Put it in your mouth.
The front.
I know I'm a very active talker.
You're all over the place.
All over the place. So I mean, it really started we mentioned hockey. I mean, that's really where most of my life has been, is the hockey rink, the hockey arena, and I was playing that for years. Ended up getting hurt towards the end of my career, having some issues. My NHL draft years actually blew out my groins. Just really started to derail things.
All of them?
Both groins, both sides, all of them. Yeah.
Jesus.
And so I really started to get messed up about 17 years old, senior when I was at the U.S. program, actually. And then it took me years to kind of figure out, hey, this is not good. And I ended up getting fixed. I was at Michigan State, and I'm getting fixed a year and a half later, finally getting surgery and everything. And it took forever.
Fixed, like a dog.
No, not like a dog. Not like a dog or cat. Close though. I mean, same kind of region, very close. I got the mesh in my stomach.
Couple inches
of
the blade. One,
exactly. So I end up, playing at state, playing in the minors for a while, and then end up getting some concussions from getting hit, stuff like that. And it really, then you start as an athlete. I got hurt. First time I ever got hurt when I was 17, 18. And then I started having head injuries when I was, 23, 24. And then you start doing a lot of thinking. And this is around the time of a lot of the concussion stuff, right? And this was 2010, 11, around that, where it really started to kind of take off, all this concussion stuff. People were killing themselves, things like that. So I did a lot of thinking and praying, just what am I doing? What should I be doing? And it took about a year. And I loved real estate. I love politics and history and law and all this stuff. And I went to school for those things. Quickly got out of both of those majors, building construction management and political science, because I realized when I got there, you get into class and you're like, this is not what I thought was fun about real estate or politics or history or anything or law. So I'm out, this is, I want to do my own thing, not have some professor tell me,
right.
this is how the,
Yeah.
So
Bullshit.
Typical. I still don't know what I want to do in life.
College
typical.
is a joke.
Right. Exactly. There's their second podcast right there.
I've done a whole lot of bullshit.
Paul's very
Bullshit.
strong.
College is
Exactly.
bullshit.
Very strong.
Oh, so anyway, so that's happening. I'm thinking, so then I'm just like, you know what? I've got to stop this. I take a year off. Basically, I stop playing hockey. Somewhat cold turkey. I mean, I had my fair share of injuries, like I was saying, but I think a lot of people and probably my friends and family, people close to me, were just like, okay, like, he's got to get his head right, and just never went back. And it was just kind of doing a year of thinking, and boy, do I love hockey. Like, it's, you grow up your entire life, like, shooting pucks. I joke with people all the time, and I have some younger, siblings and cousins, and, like, well, what do you, how can you shoot like that? How do you do that? And it was like, man, I've spent hours in the driveway. I spent shooting 500 pucks a day in the driveway in the summer. And I was doing the math. I'm like, I probably shot 70 to 100,000 pucks a summer. And they're like sitting, I'm like, what?
That's a lot.
Like, are you kidding me? I was like, dude, that's what it takes. That's what it takes to be successful. Is repetition, is doing it over and over and over again. And I think about like that passion of doing that and then having to give that up. And it's very real though. The concussion thing is very real. Having had that happen, nothing major, but I had some that were like successive, very close to each other, where I never got, like, I wasn't blacked out on the ice, things like that. But I had 3 within probably a month span.
That's a lot.
Where
you're
you're more susceptible. Every time you get hit, you're more susceptible. So
your brain's bruised, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about this stuff, and then I really started thinking about all the people, and we were talking off air before we started. I did a lot of, that I was very physical growing up.
You're the grinder, dude.
Yeah, and I thought about a lot of people I hurt growing up.
You're on someone's list somewhere.
Exactly. And so when you start as an athlete thinking and hesitating like that, you're done.
You're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
And it took me a few years to kind of figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
And I look back, I'm like, boy, oh boy, like I was done a while before I ever quit. You know, it was just like everything kind of caught up, the heart and the mind, everything kind of caught up together finally at one point. I was just like, all right, like this is not good. I'm hesitating. I'm not playing. I'm not being who I am. So at that point, it's just like, all right, I've got to make a switch. So, long story short, I, take a year off, basically, kind of figure out what's going on, who I am, and then
soul searching,
true soul searching,
for sure.
And then I get into real estate. I love real estate. I love real estate investing, all that stuff. And so I get into realty with my wife now, but my then girlfriend and my mother were really the ones that were like pushing me, like, just get into realty, like just do it. Like, you want to be in that arena anyway, just do it.
Yeah.
So I ended up, going to some investor meetings around here and talking to a bunch of people, and ended up joining Keller Williams 5-6 years ago. I can't even remember now. And so I think 6 years ago, coming up 6 years. And so I went there, and then kind of the rest is history, and just started, you get into real estate and it's like, boy, oh boy, they have no idea what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
Like no idea what's going on. Completely lost.
Yeah.
There's no training, no nothing, even
here's
Keller
a phone,
Williams,
bro.
Right? Yeah. Here's a phone.
bro.
Here's where's your database?
Yeah.
So learning very fast, or you're dead, right? So just getting into that, and here we are 6 years later. I have a team now, and there's 6 of us, and it's fun. I mean, it's a blast. So
how do you translate that work ethic? Because like you hear about the greats, right? Like the repetition of shooting that many pucks, or hitting that many tee shots, or hitting that many free throws, just repetition. How do you translate that into starting a new career in real estate? What is the repetition, or what do you do every day to help make you successful? Because obviously you're successful.
Well, I think it's due to his work ethic.
But
right?
what is it that sets you apart, or what is it that you practice on a daily?
So honestly, consistency, like you said. I mean, consistency of whatever it is. And at the moment, I love studying and researching things. So the last few years, it's been a lot of social media, digital marketing. So I live up north more, even to where I work. So my wife's from Saginaw. We live in between, basically. So I have to commute a lot, every day, to come down a lot every day. I have to commute down, and then a lot of times I find myself in places even south of where I work, which
like
is
here.
like Royal Oak, like wherever.
Today.
Well, and then I'm driving an hour back, maybe hour and 10 minutes back home every night. So I learned very quickly, being a very family-oriented person. I don't want to, like Gary Vaynerchuk, right? He's going to be, I grind 18 hours a day, 16 hours a day. He's fine with that. His wife's fine. His kids are fine with that. I'm not, I want to grind my face off and work hard and work smart. So it was like, how do I start leveraging myself? And he works smart too. Don't get me wrong. He obviously works very smart.
It's a very atypical
He's an animal.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, he's the unicorn, right?
Yeah.
And I, that's not how I want my family to be. I want to be around my kids a little bit more, things like that.
That's the world you want to build.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of us like that. And he is a unicorn. So I looked at that and I was like, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, what, social media, like it was like, that's how to leverage and be, because I was doing all these networking meetings and things like that. And I have to be there. I physically have to be there, and you can only do so many.
Right.
So it was like, how can I start leveraging myself and getting into more places at once without having to be there? Well, it was social media, it was Facebook, and then Lives came out a year later and things like that, and in Periscope at the time, and YouTube. And so how can I start being in more places at once?
I love it.
Well, our business, right, like in the repetition, I think is we're a contact sport, right? So you have to figure out how many people can you hit in a day and be efficient, right? Whether it's one post that goes out to 8,000 people, whether it's, I need to call 80 realtors today, right? Or I need to call 100 of my past clients, right? It's all
activity.
What you do in that day, right? That activity.
Yes.
And getting out and basically contacting people. So I think that's kind of our grind. That's our puck shooting. That's our
How many shots on goal do you have today?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I thank you for wrapping that up, Sal, because I had never really answered the question. So I appreciate that.
but you put it out there, right?
I have a tendency to do that. One of my partners, Aaron, we'll go on tangents, and it's just like I don't even know where this started.
A lot of brain in the conversation.
And no one even answered the question.
Yeah.
So
What happens with our podcast a lot.
It happens a lot. Speaking of which, I wanted to get into the topics that we're going to talk about today. There's 3 main topics I want to talk about. The one overriding thing that's happening today is the Fed is meeting. It's a big meeting, so we'll get into that. We're going to talk about the former Bankrate CEO just got 10 years. CFO for cooking the books to the tune of $25 million. He pled guilty.
That's going to happen way more.
Dude, we'll talk
Barclays,
about
UBS. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then one more thing is Caldwell Banker is doing this thing where they're buying houses directly from the consumer and then trying to resell it on the back market, which a lot of people are doing. Zillow, and we'll get into that. First and foremost, let's talk about the overriding theme today. I think it's really important, Sal. You're really freaked out by what's happening. You're pacing back and forth. The Fed is meeting today. I want the audience to understand the Fed meeting today isn't different because we already know there's a 95% chance they're raising rates in quarter. That's done and baked into the market. We got to talk about that. People are like, oh, rates are going to go up. That's already been baked in. We know that's happening. The market's expecting it. What is going to be potentially a market mover is what they say of the policy going forward.
It's funny. It's the meeting's a meeting, right? But it's everyone who's interpreting it. They're like TMZ.
They look at every word.
They'll look at some words and then they'll throw out their interpretation or some article.
They're hawkish.
Yeah.
Right.
Something's going to happen.
They have to be very careful because if the Fed says one thing wrong, if they say not wrong, but they have to be very, very calculated in the minutes and the words that they use.
The words that they choose, yeah.
Because everything will be interpreted, and they can't go back on that, right?
Exactly.
If they say, well, we're kind of thinking about raising rates one more time this year, the market will go into a tizzy because that is not what they're expecting, right?
Well, I think they're going to say they're going to raise them, but every time they do, typically rates kind of jump down, right? And this is the first time because the markets in September, I think, are usually down. And they're up, right? So now with that plus an interest rate rise, it's kind of like what's going to happen. So
yeah, the whole thing that they're talking about is right now they feel like the economy is doing really, really well, right? Yeah. So because it's doing really well, they feel like they can be more aggressive on the interest rate rising, interest rates going up. They feel like we've been too low for too long. And that's kind of to be expected, but people are going to be hanging on every word. Watch the market. Watch the news that comes out after this meeting. It's going to be a dissection of every word.
It's going to be crazy.
If you're in the mortgage business, that 10 years up on your screen all day, being refreshed all day, probably
today.
I mean,
for sure.
And to be honest, to the people listening out there, it's not like all of a sudden your rate's gonna be a quarter point higher. It's like, hey, instead of costing no points, it might cost a quarter point.
Yeah,
right?
so
it's really not that big of a deal.
The quarter point, but there's a difference. So the audience understands a point in mortgage terms is like 1 point is 1% of a loan amount, right?
In cost.
So something might go up 25 basis points, which is a quarter, but your rate won't go up a quarter.
On a $100,000 loan, that means that it costs you
an extra $250.
$250 at closing.
Right.
So it's not that big. Or you might get a $250 credit, just depending on how the meeting goes. So, it's hard to say and it's hard to speculate, but ultimately it's not like, oh my God, the world's the sky's falling or the pastures have opened up for either way. I mean,
look,
it's not that big.
And Brandon,
of a deal,
you've seen this. Rates have gone up, right? They have gone up. They were at one point 3 years ago, maybe 3.875 on a 30-year. Now we're talking about close to 5.
All-time lows. Exactly.
Right? Now but people are still buying houses. And realistically, and I don't know if you have this conversation with people, the price of money is still cheap.
Oh, yeah.
It's still cheap.
Historically, yeah. Exactly.
I promise you.
Absolutely.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, people will look back on these rates and say, man, I got a good rate.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you see
100%.
that correlating in the market right now? As far as
do you hear people like scared, like, hey, man, I don't know if I want to buy right now because of the rates? Do you hear that?
I haven't heard that personally
No,
yet, really. I think that just overall, I mean, looking at the data every single month, we do our market updates, send them out, do whatever, and do that every month. I mean, there's been a little bit of a slowdown. Like just this past month was the first time over the last 2 years that the numbers have basically changed, where there was more inventory than there was this time last year, which that's the first time in probably 12 to 18 months I've seen that. The trajectory has been down. It's been less every month compared to the year prior for at least maybe 2 years.
But it changed overnight.
It changed overnight.
Yeah.
Like really, but it's funny because like it's hard to tell because it happened in August, which we all know is a very weird time anyway.
Correct.
So you don't know. I mean, if it would have happened in July, it would be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But you can't tell almost what happened. So it will be interesting the next month or two to see what happens with the Fed doing their thing, but also what's really going on at the market. Was it just the August weird slowdown school thing, or like was it something else?
But dude, here's what I'll tell you. We haven't been seasonal for the last couple of years where like the seasons didn't matter.
Right.
This season mattered.
As much.
It mattered, right? School started, people slowed down. I feel like we're just back to being seasonal. I do believe, and this is my if everything's good with the jobs and the economy, we're going to have a strong spring again. So I personally believe with rates where they're at today, between now and the spring is a great time to buy. Inventory's up, and you as a buyer have way more power. Tell me that your buyers aren't getting seller concessions now compared to before.
And their listings aren't selling as fast.
Right, so they've got more leverage.
There's a lot of, this has been in the market 30 days. Right.
What's
the price?
I've seen a couple contingent offers.
Going into the winter, you don't want your house sitting on the market over the winter.
So talk about that. Go back to what you just said.
So
contingent offers, which never happened.
You haven't seen those in a while.
Yes.
I mean, what, like 6, 8, 12 months?
So explain
really
what a contingent offer is.
Contingent offer is the buyer's coming in, they've got to sell their home, and they need those funds to close on that new home that they're buying. So we just, like this week, we had 3 listings go up, and like 2 of them have contingent offers. Like, I haven't seen those. Literally haven't seen those in months and months.
So the audience understands.
I think we've seen them. They just haven't been considered.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like
they don't get accepted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So those people who had to sell their home that couldn't,
Yes.
right? Because it's like, dude, we just can't buy. Now it's the time. If you have a home to sell, now is the time to buy too, because now everyone's in the same boat.
And that's a great point, because I was just telling someone yesterday, we probably have 12 to 15 sellers this year that ended up not selling, because inevitably, if you're doing your advisor thing and telling the truth, and you want to do that for your clients, obviously, you'd have to talk about, hey, you want to sell your home, but you got to jump in this buyer market now. So a dozen or so people were like, you know what, I get it, Brandon, like, we're just not going to sell, because they didn't have to. So now, like you were saying, like, this is a great time if you did want to sell to still get that equity, and now jump into the market where, hey, you're not fighting with 100 people. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, if you were in that boat, you should probably reconsider looking again at least and see what's out there.
Definitely reconsider.
Because now you can get your offer accepted.
Yep.
It's a healthier market. We're back to kind of a normal, I think, because just so the audience understands, the reason contingent offers weren't being accepted is because if I have 15 offers in front of me and 10 of them are contingent on the sale of another house, but I got 5 that have no contingencies, I'm taking the 5. So people were not winning their offers weren't being accepted because if you're contingent, I can go to the guy that's not contingent that's giving me the same amount of money, right?
With a higher probability of closing.
Well, yeah, and I think it was kind of sparked by, I don't want to say hyperinflation, but definitely a quick inflation of home prices that sparked a lot of sellers to sell, right?
Yeah.
And grab that equity while they could.
Yep.
So speaking of that, are you seeing more home price, the inflation still going up? Are you seeing it leveling off, or are you seeing it come down?
Honestly, I mean, we've been, because I'm sure, the last 6-8 months, you could get away with, pricing that home just a tad higher, and hey, things would work out. But right now,
appraisal guarantees, things like that.
I mean,
it's all gone, bro.
I told everyone this past week or two, we had a bunch go live, a couple more going this week, and like, we got a price right at fair market value.
You're seeing reductions now
all
over the place.
Yep.
You're seeing
100%.
price reductions. People are like, oh, I want $200K for my house.
Yep. Well,
it's not there. You got to take 180.
Exactly.
Well, and I see more frequently appraisal. Like all summer, I was like, appraisals are coming in pretty decent, But now that turn happened, it's like, hey, appraisal came in $5,000 light, $10,000 light.
I had one come $1,000 light.
That's
I've only seen that one time. I think.
I had one 2K light last week.
You're an asshole if you're an appraiser.
Yeah,
You
it's
get
like, dude, come on. Come on.
Appraisers
Right?
out there, if it's a G off, bro, come on, man.
Make it happen.
Seriously.
It's a G.
Either make it 5 or
Yeah, exactly.
make the adjustment.
Yeah,
do
You know,
it
you
like
know that
a
appraiser is
What
like,
a pain in the ass.
I believe it's 258.5.
It's like
I had one come in like
258, 500.
it was literally like $263,602. He like what? Like why?
Bro,
Why would you do that?
the guy's just a dick.
Yeah.
You're just a dick.
It is. It's
All
so
right,
true, though.
All right, so obviously the Fed is meeting today. I mean, it's gonna be very interesting to see what they
This one feels
say.
different.
It feels different, yeah.
It feels like there's way more uncertainty. Like
A lot of
Normally, I
uncertainty.
feel like we have a pretty good handle on. It's either we're going to see a retraction because there's an overestimate, right? It's already built in, or we're going to see an initial gut.
Actually,
reaction
it feels
up.
like every single one. Because
I think it feels a little more uncertain. Like I think it
Sell
could go
such a
either way.
contrarian.
well, I think like every time we're like, I don't know, man. Fed meeting, right? And I always call everyone and we lock down.
You're
And
always
then
like that.
It's like, boom, you know. And again, it's not like they would have saved the world, but it's like, hey, you might save $200-300, right?
Right.
Can I
So
give
That's
you-
good though.
I'm gonna go on a limb and give you my prediction.
I just think it's
And
a
then
good thing to
we'll-
put out there. If you want to lock your rate, think about it,
Yeah.
right?
It's a good thing
You
to
roll the
communicate
dice
to
either way.
buyers. Right.
But you roll the
That-
dice every day.
You want the ball in their court.
Hey, do you want to lock?
I'm gonna let's do a quick prediction. I want everybody to give their prediction. My prediction is that the market has already priced everything in, and they've actually overreacted. And the Fed meetings will be not as the minutes will not be as like scary, and we'll actually see rates go down a little bit.
That's
I
what
hope-
my gut says too, but I'm not sure.
Okay, would you up or down?
I'm rolling the dice.
Rolling the dice.
I think you know.
Yeah, I think it's going up. I think it ultimately has to, because truly this is what kind of recovery is this? We printed how much money? $4 trillion,
lot of
over the
money.
last
But what I
5,
will
10
say,
years.
though,
I
if
mean,
you
it's
look
gotta
at-
go
if
somewhere.
If you look at year
It's got to
over
go
year
down
rate,
at some point. It's going to have to.
Well,
You know, so
I think it's already built in. To Paul's point, I think they've been raising. The markets have been reacting, building up to this, and I think they've overreacted building up to it.
I
and
don't
think
think
you'll
it
see
can
a
go
small relief,
much higher.
but then it'll continue to rise.
Yeah, but I think it needs to be slower than because I mean, dude, rates have gone up. I think 0.88% in interest rate. I was looking yesterday from last year, and I mean that's almost a % jump in a year. Which
But it's-
hey,
but
I
it's
think
been
that's
healthy.
healthy.
It's
I
been
think that's
healthy.
healthy
It's
as
been
long
gradual,
as it continues like that. But if today all of a sudden it jumps up another quarter point, right? I think that's knee jerk. One,
Yeah, I
and
don't
two.
think that'll happen.
To your point, I think it's already been built in. I think it's like, hey, things are on the path, right? They're going to continue at this
word,
pace.
But one wrong
word,
word. Yeah.
would change everything.
Shit.
you know,
goes
it'd
crazy.
be really interesting if if we just didn't even have the Federal Reserve.
I don't know. I mean, what?
What 1913? Why did we create that? Have you guys read The Creature from Jekyll Island?
No, that
Oh,
exists.
boy.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I
It's
should read
about the Federal Reserve and how it was created, and how they just jammed it down
Will
everyone's
you
throats.
send
basically.
me the name of that book,
Absolutely.
and then I want to like read it because it sounds like
Absolutely.
really an interesting.
Yep.
How
interesting
big
book.
is the book?
That's
Is
big.
it available on
It's
audio?
not. It's not that hard to read though. It kind of reads like a murder mystery in
Is
a
it
way.
an audio? Can I do an audio?
Yeah.
book?
I believe so.
Okay.
They're on like the 5th edition. It's from like '92.
Okay.
But G. Edgar Griffin is probably the best. There's Fed Up is another one. Daniel DiMartino Booth, who worked for like the Dallas Fed. She is.
Dude, for a hockey player, you're pretty smart.
That's what I was thinking too.
Hey, you get a lot of downtime when you play it. When you're an athlete, you got a lot of downtime.
That's
you
badass,
go
man.
practice for 4 hours a day, and then the rest of the day was yours.
Just so the audience
So-
knows, we don't get many smart people in
A
here.
lot of
Good job.
researching. Oh boy, we get all kinds of crazy stuff: gold and silver, crypto.
Let's not talk
Everything.
about crypto.
I know,
get
everything. We can get
man.
everything.
Sore spot.
So really quick though, I think that'll be interesting the next 6 months though, to see what happens with some of the crypto trading desks that are coming out. Like you have Jamie Dimon saying, like downplaying it, but yet Chase is building crypto desks, stuff like that.
Crypto
For
is
all-
going to change the market,
oh, yeah.
but only because
It's
the
gonna change the
blockchain
It's
technology.
blockchain. Yeah,
The
it's
actual
blockchain.
currency value of it, I don't
Who knows?
think.
Yeah, who knows?
But I think
But,
the
like,
actual technology.
blockchain,
We
yep.
could do a whole show on it. though,
Absolutely.
man. So next,
Let's talk about-
Can we talk about the next topic? We got to move on a little bit.
That's what I was gonna say.
All right,
Let's
buddy.
talk about
Thank
it.
you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking over the show.
God, I hate your face.
Man,
So
rode him to the ground.
I'm gonna read this. Former Bankrate CFO gets 10 years for cooking the books to the tune of $25 million. Let me read this. Back in June, Edward DiMaria pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to make false statements to a public company's accountants, falsify a public company's books, records, and accounts, and commit securities fraud, plus 1 count of making materially false claims to the Securities and Exchange Commissions. That's a big deal, and I don't think anybody's ever talked about it. This dude, who Bankrate's a pretty big company, right? I mean, they do a lot of things. If you ever go to their website, a lot of lenders go there to post their rates, and it's a pretty big company. You want to know my theory on this? This guy didn't act alone. I feel like
there's another guy named in there that got 60 months.
Yeah, he's getting smashed though because he's the one that pulled the trigger, right? So I think this happens a lot in businesses where, and I think we're going to potentially see more of this. This is just the guy that got caught.
Yeah.
Right. This is just the guy that
That's the cool thing about technology. Like people, it's the whole Me Too, all that, and hey, right, wrong, or indifferent. Eventually, there's gonna be a lot of bad people that go down because of technology.
Yeah,
we hear about the bad stuff now, and you can't hide anymore.
No, bro,
you can't hide.
No, it's
so
all
people
over.
like this is gonna happen.
But
more
I guarantee
you,
more and more. To your point, he wasn't acting alone. There was definitely pressure coming from someone up, making him want to do that.
And he's the one that got
100%.
I think to myself too, it's like,
buttons.
man, how easy would it have been to cook the books in the 50s, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
It's all pen and paper, or pencil and paper,
I just heard a stat that
it's like a ledger.
Yeah, it's a ledger.
Well, when my buddy John sends me over, hey, here's your tax payment for the next year. I'm like, hey man,
Johnny boy,
come on.
He's like, dude, shut
come
up.
on.
No, I heard a stat the other day though. It was I can't remember where it was, but it was just talking about crime, but not crime, but abduction, child. You know how we hear about that stuff all the time. Someone's abducted. Someone, we hear about that, but the stat is so crazy. When you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's 90% less than it was 50, 60 years ago.
We just know about
it now.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy. It's safer now, 100 times more safer to send your kid down to the store to go grab something on their bike than it was when our parents were growing up.
Well, think about milk. The only way you knew someone got abducted was your milk carton.
Exactly.
You get 2 pictures. Have you seen Johnny?
Yep. Now everyone's a reporter,
single,
right? So
every single
everywhere.
phone will go off with an Amber Alert.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Technology is nuts because there's more cameras in this world everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You can't do anything without potential. There's cameras here.
We got 6 in this room, probably, right?
Yeah.
All our phones.
Oh yeah, phones.
I mean, we're live right now, so I can't do anything crazy.
Yeah.
Side note, I just got a text. Is Paul wearing an Under Armour shirt? He looks like he's about to go run a race.
Paul doesn't run.
Who is that from? Who was that from?
Fan of the show.
Fan of the show.
Yeah.
I look good. I'm 38 years old, bitches. Suck it. So no, what my point about this is literally I don't think he acted alone. I think he had pressure from above, and I don't think that guy's ever gonna get clipped. This poor soul's gonna spend 10 years in prison.
Or he was the fall man.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, again, it's kind of look at Penn State, right? I watched that movie with Al Pacino last night, but it's hey, he didn't actually do it, right? He didn't cook the books or do what he did himself, right? But he knew about it,
right?
Well, no, here's the deal, dude. If I coax you to go murder someone, that murderer is going to go to jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's who pulled the trigger ultimately. If I convince you to do
Murder's probably a bad example.
Probably.
Because you're going to jail too.
Yeah. Well,
if you get
would
caught.
you?
That's a win for us. So I hate Bankrate.
I hate Bankrate.
Yeah, me too.
It's
for
just,
sure. But that's the thing. I mean, to these younger college kids that are out there in some of these smaller companies that have access to the books, that think that you're doing a big thing and trying to move up, and you're getting pressure to do something like this, don't do it. Technology, to you guys' point, you're going to get caught, and it's not worth it. You're going to go down.
Yep.
Leave the company.
What'd your mom always say to you? Mom's always going to find out.
Yeah.
One point or another, I'll always find out.
My mom always
right?
found out.
She always said that to me, right? Yeah. Maybe 10 years from now, but I'll find out.
Yep.
It's true.
I used to run out of the house for my mom because I knew she was going to smack me or something. So I'd run out of the house into the neighborhood thinking, I'm good. But what would happen is I would come back and she'd beat the shit out of me even worse.
I just don't like living with the fear of is someone going to find out. Right?
Absolutely. The guilt. Yeah.
Makes you live a better life.
Listen,
right?
A lot of people cook the books out there, and I think it's going to come out more and more.
For sure.
I mean, it's just
there was really quick. Again, this is another topic we go down, but I don't want to. It was a bank like UBS or one of those big like Barclays, like one of those big they had text messages between each other. And again, don't quote me on who it was exactly, but it could have been them. We had to look it up, but they had text messages between each other about suppressing the silver price and literally text between people that were at the bank,
all the
at
time.
the at the companies, and how they're suppressing the prices of those things right now. So to your point, this is happening everywhere at all levels in all industries. It's not just banking or
this is
finance,
very indicative of our world.
It's so funny too, because often you think and you see like people in like public figures or celebrities or whatever, like you're like, man, they must live such a different life. But dude, they got a cell phone. They probably got a couple of them, right?
Yep. And
they have the ability to text message. I mean, shit, our president has a Twitter.
Yep, exactly.
Right? And it's kind of like, can you imagine reading their text?
Imagine taking that away.
Before we go to the next topic, I just got a text. Sal's chest hair looks amazing.
You just made that. He just made that up.
Thanks.
All right, next topic, boys.
End of the show, I assume. Yeah.
Caldwell Banker is going to be buying houses off clients directly. So they're going to do this direct buy thing where Zillow's doing it. There's a whole bunch of companies doing it now. Basically, where they're going to be saying, "Hey, you want to sell your house? It's worth 110 maybe. We'll give you 100,000. You just walk away from it." They also they're saying theirs is different than Zillow and Redfin and all these because they also offer you the ability to work with an agent. I just see more and more of this happening where we're gonna have like this marketplace where people just want to like offload their houses. Almost
kind of smart, right? It's almost like consignment, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you could go to the dealer to trade your car in.
Yeah. Or you can sell yourself
on consignment for 6% commission.
Yeah.
Right. That will take a while, or if you don't give a shit, trade it in. Let's go.
But that would have been that would have been a way bigger deal 4 months ago when we were seeing all those contingent offers that were getting laughed at, right? Because now I'm not contingent anymore because they're going to buy my house flat out. Now I have money. There's no more contingency, right?
Yes.
I think they're a little late to the game, but I also think that's a ton of risk for them.
It's a ton of risk. I think it's weird that
Man.
But I don't think they're late to the game. Here's the deal: as it gets harder to sell a house now. Right?
Yeah.
It's harder to sell a house. Like my sister-in-law, they've got a higher end house. It's like a $600,000 to $80,000 house. She's moving. She's a CEO. She's moving to Cleveland. Her house has been sitting on the market. That high end market is not moving, right? Oh. And she needs to sell that house because she's literally living in Cleveland right now as a CEO. And they're like, well, we don't know how to do this. If they could just offload it for $650,000, right? They might do that.
Well, and also I think that like for appraisers and real estate agents, you have to start thinking that. Again, technology and data. Like, hey, there are AVMs coming out that will tell you a much more accurate value of your house that will be deemed reliable probably by Fannie Mae at some point. So it's like, hey, there is no appraisal. Yeah. This is what your house is worth.
Right. We'll give you 98% of it.
But that's what you could sell it for. So if you want to sell it, let's go.
But to your point, how are these sales going to affect an appraiser's opinion, market, right? Because they look at past sales, and if they're buying it below
underpriced,
underpriced, right?
Essentially 8% that a standard buyer or seller pays, right? You got your 2% or 6% commissions, and then probably another 2% in costs on top of that, baked into the price, right?
Yep.
It's all about what the buyer net or the seller nets.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of companies coming out like that. A bunch of VC money behind stuff like that. I mean, the real estate's going to change for sure. I think the other question, part of that is, like, what's the stat? It's like 8% of people sell by owner, I think, something like that. I want to say. I think NAR usually says 8%. I mean, what does that look like for, like, is it going to be another 8% or 10% of people that do this? It's not going to be most people. I think everyone will still kind of,
It depends if they perfect it.
Well, everyone right now is
100 years from now. I mean, people is all be digital,
if Amazon decided to do this and they made $500 a sale and they did it 1,000,000 times, they see that as a profit.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that they're trying to buy Rocket Homes.
No.
Or not Rocket Homes, Rocket Mortgage.
That's not happening.
No. I heard that. Amazon.
I know for a 100% fact
who knows,
that's not happening.
Right?
That's not,
but again, they could, right?
Bezel's a beast.
I'm sure.
Don't count them out.
What's your price, right?
Right.
You know, what's your price to buy it?
Incredible.
And ultimately, that's where everything's going.
I mean, I guess. if someone offered you, there's a price for everything.
Yeah, price for everything, right? I mean,
Bezos is like, I'll give you $100 billion.
Yeah.
$100 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's where I think
someone could offer you $6 for your shirt.
You know, the brand's worth at least $6, right?
I mean, fuck you. Fuck you, Sal.
All right.
So here's where I think Caldwell went a little wrong, right? Because every seller, every homeowner thinks their house is the best on the block. Their house is worth more than anyone else.
I have the best shirt on.
Paul has the best shirt on. How many people are going to be willing to take that that much lower of a price when they think their house is that much higher already, right? I think it's going to be a lot smaller than
listen.
Than
if
it
was 8%, is 6 or 10. That's where I go back.
If this was a model that's not going to work, companies like Zillow, Redfin, Open Door, OfferBad, Perch, and Knock would not be getting millions of dollars in fees money.
It's another branch for them, but I don't think it's going to be a big one. It's going to work for a small portion of people out there.
Listen, traditional real estate is not changing.
Right. They'll definitely take a market share. Well, how much is it going to be?
Almost have to look at
exactly
like when you sell a car, right? I mean, who often, unless it's like a $1,000 to $5,000 car, right? I mean, who's going to essentially go through the hassle of listing on Craigslist and wait, right?
Nobody.
Or you're gonna go trade it in, right? And essentially that's the cost you pay, right, to just take care of it, right? And that's kind of what you do with a realtor. It's easy. It's quick. You get what you need out of it, and if the deal makes sense, it makes sense. So
I feel like that's apples to oranges, though, because cars. Think about a typical person, how many times they buy a car in their life, right? You usually buy one every 3 to 5 years. That's a lot of cars. Where a house, you may be 3 to 4 year lifetime, right?
We'll see what happens. So today, obviously, the Fed meeting. Look for that. Our show is over. Yeah. So real quick,
it's all over.
That's it.
Fast.
Yeah, that was quick. So,
she said.
Brandon, thank you very much. Tell the audience how they can get a hold of you.
Legacy Group,
front of the mic.
mi.com. LegacyGroupMI.com. You can email me, Brandon at LegacyGroupMI.com. Go Gary V style, just give out my email. Absolutely. And Instagram, the usual places.
Yeah. What product are you using? What is the product that you're using?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
This is like Redken hairspray.
Redken.
Yeah.
Hairspray. It's
hairspray.
It's Redfin.
Spray.
Redfin. Yeah. No, I've gone to the spray. I've gone to the spray because like the gel, everything, just like being hockey, it runs in my eyes, and like I'm just getting all. So I like the light feeling of the hairspray.
Okay,
I love it.
Very good. Enough of that. So
product Paul.
So we started a new Facebook page. It's at IRE Podcast.
Yep.
We're gonna have a new website. It's gonna be irepodcast.com.
Yep.
Find us on Stitcher, iTunes,
Google Play.
the Podcast Detroit app. Google Play,
YouTube,
Facebook. You can go to our Omega Lending page. Milk cartons. What else? Where else are we?
Trying to get into Trump's.
The strip club?
No, I'm just kidding. What? We're trying to get everywhere.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. That's our show. God bless. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.